let's talk about the Sharks' victory, 26 points to 18 over the Cowboys. They were leading 24-0 at half-time, and it was Braden Trindle that impressed me. He was man of the match first, second and third. When all the talk all week had been about Nicho Hynes and would he step up and would he manage this game, it was a bloke who is on a third, maybe even a quarter of his salary, who absolutely led from the front. He was outstanding, Block.
Not after the weekend, he won't be. I reckon it's a pretty smart move to move him on ball. A little bit of an elephant in the room for mine. Nicho Hynes, mate, I'm not so sure that he's not injured. I watched him going into contact, and I watched the game pretty closely, and mate, not at any stage during that game did he try and take the line on. He plays a lot of overs all the time. I'm not so sure that, and you can blame injuries and all that sort of stuff, but Trindle took over. I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I thought Kennedy was great at the back. I thought his ball running there, but Trindle, he was involved in everything. Can he have that sort of game? It was great to see him have that sort of performance in a big semi-final. But can he back it up again next week? I reckon the Panthers would have been sitting, along with the Melbourne Storm, with their feet up, watching the weekend's rounds, just going, we can't wait for these two sides to batter each other, and then we get to have a go at them.
Well, Trindle was the 7, wasn't he? Yeah. He had a 6 on his back, but he was running that team. He was playing half-back role. I think with Nicho, you're probably correct. He had that foot injury not that long ago. He's only recently returned. That probably is still a bit of a factor. I remember when it first happened, they did predict he would be out until finals. He came back early, so no doubt that's still an issue for him. I thought Hynes just did enough. He was okay. He wasn't involved in any big mistakes, which was probably pleasing for him, and hopefully that's the catalyst for more involvement in the coming weeks. But Trindle was in absolutely everything. That finish for the try in the corner, the way he held the ball on top of the ball, uncharacteristically, like, I don't know, you could hold a ball like that. It was a finish.
He must have some mitts on him.
Yeah, it was a finish like Xavier Coates would have been proud of. Like, that was sensational stuff from him. And the Sharks had to dig deep there because the way that game started, the back and forth nature, the Cowboys were coming, and then Reece Robson through the middle at the end. Like, the fatigue was setting in big time. But the Sharks, they finally break that hoodoo. So pleased for Fitzgibbon and a couple of friends that I've got there at the Sharks. I was delighted for him. I think in general in that game they deserved the victory as well, and all thanks to Trindle.
Hynes' long-term deal at the Sharks, I mean, there's going to have to be question marks raised over it. You're right, Block. It was almost like he just sat back and he never took a kick. The first 7 kicks, Trindle kicked on the last. He stayed out of it. He wasn't playing on both sides of the field. So either he's injured or at the moment he's really lost his confidence.
Well, it might have been instructions from Fitzy too, just to sit back, mate, sit back, let Trindle run everything, warm yourself in the game, don't make any mistakes after he was rattled the week before. So maybe it's a bit of a stroke of coaching genius.
I think it's a combination of both. I think that he did have that bad ankle and foot injury, but then I think his confidence is also, you can see that just from his body language and his interviews in the media during the week, that it has taken a bit of a hit. And it would, because it's all encompassing the game these days. It's 24/7. There's so much coverage. Everything is micro-analysed to within an inch of its existence. And he has worn a lot of criticism over the course of the last couple of weeks.
Well, you know things are bad when you turn off social media and you're Nicho Hynes, don't you? So, like, that's the play of the modern day player is, I'm going to turn social media off. So he did that. In terms of Nicho's game, you could see he was keen to get involved, and where you get those early involvements defensively in the opening set, he was involved in 3 or 4 tackles, which sort of has that mindset of like, I just want to get into the game. I want to get some body contact, and that would have settled his nerves. But for the Sharks moving forward, Dobber, you question like the deal. He earned that deal. When he first came from the Storm to the Sharks, he was one of the best players in the competition.
Yeah, I understand that, Gemma. I understand he won a Dally M, but, mate, it's $1 million and it's an impact on your cap. And if you're not going to actually... But he's got to stand up now and not being rude to him. He has to lead that side. $1 million players, they have to be the best player in that side.
It's not a question about the deal. He has to step up. Of course, he'd know that. But the deal was the right deal to do at the time.
Yeah, it was, Gemma. And look, he was coming off winning the Dally M medal. There were other clubs in the queue all interested in trying to recruit Nicho. But I think To your point, Dobbo, he does need to deliver. And I worry about this week, Cronulla up against Penrith. Penrith are so clinical and so dominant.
Yeah, it's funny. When I looked at that game before, they were smashed through the middle by the Melbourne Storm, the Sharks. You remember that?
Yep.
And mate, I think you'll find Munster had 20 runs in that game. They didn't go and shift the ball. They went straight through the guts of the Sharkies. I reckon Penrith would have watched that, and I reckon they'll come away with it. When you see. I always keep thinking back to when the Penrith Panthers played in the grand final against Parramatta. The game was all over in 20 minutes. When you had Leota, Fisher Harris going through the middle. Now, I've said it before, Isaiah Yeo is one of the best ball-playing forwards in the game. He's put that in the back pocket. You watch how many times he runs behind the ruck now. He's put his ball-playing skills, because they got Cleary and all those sort of guys, he's taken one for the team and just a ball runner. Now, when you have a look at him as a ball runner, and he's got a great nous for when to run. He reads rucks really good. He knows when to go, when to get in behind the ruck. Plenty of experience, but also a big man. Mate, he'd be 6'4", a hard man to handle. And with that nous and knowing when to go and when to read the rucks and when to go, mate, I just don't know whether the Sharks can handle him through the middle.
Well, the Sharks go to Penrith with everything to gain. Nothing to lose.
Yeah.
And they did that against Manly 2 weeks ago. Manly, everything to play for.
Yeah, but respectfully, Jimmy.
Different sides,
No,
Gemma.
well,
but that's not apples and apples.
I know it's not. But there's for me, that attitude brought out the best in the Sharks. And you'd in that changing room, you start to cling to little things like that. And you go, well, hang on. The Panthers had a wobble against Canberra 3 or 4 weeks ago. So you've got to sort of build belief within yourself. Now, we know Penrith land psychological blows before the ball has even been kicked. And I think if I'm the Sharks, how can we disrupt this Penrith team? How can we get them out of that flow state? Because you're right, they come through the middle, but that's off the back of a grind game. The ball in play for long periods of time, back and forth, north and south. Like, I think if you're the Cronulla Sharks, you're looking to disrupt that as much as you can. Little bit old school mentality. If you play 4 and you're 40 meters out, maybe not the box kick, but maybe kick it into the touch. So that's your defensive line gets set, and Penrith are not advancing into your kick chase line with 15, 20 meters of room to work with. I think they've really got to consider how they disrupt the momentum and the flow of the game, make it ugly, make it scrappy. And then Penrith may become frustrated. Look, they're a champion side, and you'd think that they'd overcome that. But I think if the Sharks to get the victory at Penrith and shock everybody, they've got to disrupt the flow of the game.
There's no doubt Cronulla will embrace that siege mentality. They've had to for this entire finals series. Fitzy spoke about after they beat Manly in the final round of the regular season, that they had come in for plenty of criticism, and some people had labelled them pretenders and that they'd had a soft draw, but they've only been able to play and beat who's
What's
in front of them.
It's not easy.
That's it. I think Fitzy's one of the best coaches in the game, Blocker, with the roster that he's got, to be able to achieve the sustained success that he has. He's had him in the top 4 virtually every season. He needed to get the monkey off the back in terms of winning a finals game. He's done that now. But I still have grave fears that Penrith at this time of the year, they are a ruthless juggernaut. They are tuned to the millisecond. They know exactly everybody's role. And Cronulla at a core stadium next Saturday night, I think that Penrith will just be too classy.
But if you're going to get the victory, you got to frustrate them like that. Like maybe
I like the kick early.
Go outside the box, get the ball into touch, disrupt the flow, pause, stop. Okay, are we all set? And even with the way that I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but the way the referees are going in this climate of they've put the whistle away, I think you've just got to try and take full advantage of that. And look, it's some of the. You're not cheating, but you're playing to the rules of engagement that are currently set by the referees. And coaches and teams will know that. The Penrith Panthers, they don't need to change anything. They do what they do in terms of their ruck control and especially on try line. But if they're the Sharks, I think you've got to go in with a bit of a
Something
plan.
Different, yeah.
Push the envelope as far as you can with the referee. That then therefore frustrates them and disrupt that flow, make it scrappy, make it messy.
Let's talk about the referees. Can I just say over the last 2 weeks, the refereeing performance has been absolutely outstanding. And I say that because they've actually let the game breathe. It's brought some fatigue into it. There's been less repeat six tackle sets. There's been less penalties. There's been less players put on report. The whistle has gone in the pocket. Now, we expect that in grand finals, and we've seen it at different stages at Origin, but through the course of 27 weeks, there's been a lot of nitpicking going on, and the bunker and the referees have been in the headlights for the majority of the year. Firstly, I'll go to you blokes to start off with. How good has it been? But why can't they just referee like this and police the game week to week like they're doing at the moment? It's a far better product when they're staying out of it.
The understanding of the six agains, the thing that really got me, and I'm a fan like everyone else, the ruck infringement, when you'd hear that over the loudspeaker, ruck infringement, like I'm a fan, I'm sitting there going, what's it for? I think every fan that follows the game would have been thinking exactly the same thing. If you can explain to us what it's for, why it's not a penalty, in the rush of the game, you can say, oh, I don't know, whatever, hands in the ruck or whatever it is. So then I'm watching the game and I'll go, oh, yeah, I get that if I see a replay or whatever. But they're gonna put some sort of spin on it. Let's be honest. They've put the whistle away. Mate, have a look at last night, for instance. I'll just give you a little example of it. Like we did the game last night. So the Roosters are the most penalised side in the competition. At one stage, the penalties were 6-1 in favour of the Roosters yesterday. And I'm not saying that Manly weren't infringing and all that sort of stuff, but how can a side be 6 times better and cleaner than what the opposition is? I don't really get that. I don't really understand it. You can't all of a sudden turn your discipline off.
You're right, Block. And Dobbo, you make a great point. Where has this been all year? Because it does change how teams play. Unfortunately, I think what will happen with the referees putting the whistle away, coaches tend to react, especially coaches that think they need an edge to get a victory. Penrith, not much will change. In fact, I'd predict that they wouldn't even mention it at all. Like the way they defend their goal line and their ability and the small gains that they get from putting somebody on a east-west as opposed to north-south, and just that half a second that they gain there. But other teams, they've not got the capability to turn that defensive tactic around in such a short period of time. But what they will go is, hey, we'll get our extra second by staying on a little bit longer. So expect to see coaches change how their teams play and how they push the envelope. The one thing that I've really liked about the referees in the past week or so is the slight head-high contact, or the
just being let go.
And players are playing that game of cat and mouse with the referee. Yep. We've seen a number of players stay down, wait for the penalty. It's not come. You get up, you play the ball. Same with the crusher.
And you watching as a fan, you applaud that, don't you? Straight away, I'm going, absolutely. Oh, good, let's play on.
And some of the crusher tackles, like players will get their heads in uncomfortable positions, but it's not a crusher in the
sense of what a crusher is.
Why that tackle was outlawed. So we used to see players back up into the tackle, players almost leave their feet and crush the head of the player. I think the last one we seen was Kurt Mann this year. That was a traditional crusher. There's some instances happen this year that they're just not. And there was an incident in yesterday's game. I think Olakau'atu stayed down. Everybody's thinking, oh, here comes the penalty. In rounds 1 to 27, I think he would have got a penalty. Yeah. But now in finals, it's not. It's far better to see.
Do you know what? The other thing, too, about the crusher, it's hard not to crush anyone. The bloke who's running the ball has got onus on not to back into the defence. As soon as you back in,
if you hit reverse,
you put yourself in a position.
You're vulnerable.
What do you want the guy to do?
Yep.
Well, it's on there is a responsibility of the defender to not crush the head, but sometimes if it's engaged by the attacker, like some of the head-high contacts, the fault of the causation of the head-high tackle
when Blake's a drop,
it's actually the footwork and players trying to find the floor or slipping over. The causation isn't the defender. So it's the same with the crusher. If the causation isn't the defender and it's the attacker's fault, it should not be a penalty.
I reckon you'd be hard-pressed finding any rugby league fan who hasn't enjoyed the way that the games have been refereed over the last couple of weeks, in that it's better when the players are deciding the results as opposed to repeated bunker interference, bizarre calls that divide commentators who've got hundreds of games of experience between them. But where it's Confucius is, well, we've played to one set of rules for 30 rounds for 27 rounds of the competition. and now all of a sudden the finals are here and we've put the whistle away. The other thing that I find confusing is, in my opinion, Adam G's the best referee, and he doesn't feature in September at the most important stage of the season.
You reckon he'll get a start next week?
Well, I hope so. I hope he does.
Maybe they just give him a week off.
Maybe.
No,
yeah.
I don't know if they will.
Some sort
I
of
don't know if
theory
they will.
that they've crunched numbers and they've got KPIs and all that sort of thing, which scares you because they've got the whole laboratory thing working down around the referee's headquarters. But apparently he was giving a lot of penalties during the regular season, and so for whatever reason, now he's not featuring in September. But you go back to the grand final, and his performance was lauded as one of the greatest refereeing performances in a grand final.
Well, every stakeholder has a responsibility in this as well. So, I've spoke there about the coaches changing their tactics. One of the things the NRL came at the start of the season out with, and they were going to be strong on, was the downtown.
Yep.
But if I'm playing against Penrith or Melbourne this week, and I know the referee's got the whistle in the pocket, how can I make an advantage?
You're taking
what?
off.
We're going to go early, lads, because you imagine the ball's on the referee to blow a penalty for a downtown after they've been. It seems as though they've been instructed to say, put the whistle away. Like, it would be a huge, courageous call for a referee to penalise that when we've seen it go away. But if you're Fitzgibbon, if you're Robinson, I think you're telling your boys to get on your bikes pretty early.
We're all saying that we like it, but why isn't it the same in the 27 or 26 rounds?
That's the big thing, Block. And the thing about it is, Block, when you were playing, fatigue came in. Now, the interchange was very different at that stage as well, but the fatigue factor came in, and the best side came and shone, and you saw that even on Friday night. Although the Cowboys didn't get home, they chased down a 24-point lead and got to 18, 26, points to 18. Fatigue factor came in, and that's where Reece Robson started to dart through the middle. And it was because the game wasn't stop-start. It was end-to-end. Jammer, we even said it in the call that there hadn't been any breaks, and the middle forwards were starting to tire, and it was a different type of football and a style of football than what we've seen through the premiership rounds, which I'm like saying, I enjoyed the semi-final. Now, they are the better sides in the competition, be that as it is. But I absolutely enjoy that style of rugby league because it takes us back to when we were all kids watching blokes like Blocker, and where some guys got a second win. Like it was always the little guys. It was a game for everybody, where now is, the big bloke, he'll do 20 minutes, then he goes and has a spell, and it just seems a much more enjoyable game to watch under the current refereeing standards at the moment over these last 2 weeks than what we've been watching.
Dobber, hang on. Did you say you were a kid watching Blocker?
Yep. I sat on the hill at Leichhardt with.
You're older than him, aren't you? Are you actually being serious?
Game. I was at Blocker's last game.
And you were a child or an adult?
He was a man-child.
Yeah, he was a man-child. Who do you think referees the grand final if you had to pick it now? I understand everybody's saying Adam G, but it looks like Klein or Atkins, obviously, they are at the moment the two front runners. You'd think because they had those games. There was no mistakes that were obvious, so they're not going to rotate those referees, surely, if that's the way and the place that they're going at the moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure at this point in time, Dobbo. We'll see what happens because we've got two of the most important games of the year next weekend, right? And if there's a howler in a prelim, well, whoever is in control when that takes place, then you'd have to think it's advantage to the other bloke. That's how they'll judge it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you just hope that they get through clean next week, and that
Also, the role of the bunker is important in all this as well. Look, we do concentrate on the match official, but and you could argue that they're in control in the flow of the game, but the players stopping and waiting for bunker interference, that's been a bugbear of mine, and I think it's been great that they've sat out on a number of key decisions that had the potential, like I say, in rounds 1 to 27, I think we're getting the bunker in the ear of the referee, and they're awarding a penalty for a player staying down, and they've stayed out of it. So, really, I'm going to congratulate the bunker on staying out and sitting out.
Would you take notice of your coach, the way that you played the game? I think I know the answer on my part. If he told you that, mate, you got to lay down for penalties if you feel like you get a look, would you lay down? I'll bet you wouldn't. I wouldn't either.
Well, you know what, Blocker? It depends. Depends where and when in the game that it is.
Mm-hmm.
So if we need the
I
two,
don't reckon you got it in you.
You've never laid
I don't
down,
reckon
Gemma.
you laid down.
You've
No
never
way.
laid down.
I don't reckon you would.
I'd like to think
That you wouldn't.
I'd like to think that I wouldn't.
Geez, you'd blow up at yourself if you
yeah.
did.
You'd be rocking in the corner the next day, overthinking
Yeah,
it completely.
I'd like to think that I wouldn't block, but then in the heat of the moment, if you feel a clip and you need 2 points, you can see why people do stay down.
Oh, you can
they-
understand,
yeah,
but they're told to do it, aren't they? 100%.
Look, good luck to Jason Rolls. He's got a tough gig. He's a new head coach of the Parramatta Eels, and they have got a big job ahead of them next season after finishing 15th this year. But I'm calling BS on the way that they're trying to spin this Clint Gutherson narrative, where he's their captain. He won their Players' Player Award this year. He's one of the most popular members of that playing group. He has been the heart and soul of the joint for many, many seasons now. And to get him in and tell him that, mate, we're actually going to have a change of position for you. We want you to play a floating, roaming, undefined role in the middle of the field, possibly lock forward. Well, they got to lock forward. They got Jermaine Hopgood, and then they got Ryan Madison behind him. So I don't know how Gutho fits in there. Then to also suggest that he might have to play some hooker at the age of 30, having never played there in 200 and however many games he's played in the NRL, I find it bizarre, and I think it's basically just the Eels trying to put a different spin on that Gutho's free to go. When you read between the lines, that's what they're really doing there. He signed for next season, but they are clearly saying, if you want to have a look around, feel free.
Or is it the new coach coming in, the fear factor? I'll put it straight on the captain.
Yeah,
So everyone else in the squad goes, "Gee."
Block, I think there's a big element of that, but I think there's a big element of that. And then the flow-on effect of that is I think they're actually trying to push him out the door. He's signed for next season, but I think they're happy
He's
for
the
him to
best player.
go. Mate, I
And
agree.
he's been playing
That's why I'm
busted
calling
as well.
BS on it.
Like, he's been playing busted. He
had
pushed
broken
it.
ribs.
You know, we talk about Tommy Trbojevic and the efforts that he's gone through to put his team first before his injury and just crack on with it. Well, Gutho stayed with that Parramatta team when most would have looked for the door for this season. They knew he would have known the season was gone, but he hung on in there, played through the pain. Yeah, look, I disagree with moving him on. I think he's the best option at fullback as well. Like, who else have they got? Are they looking to bring Lomax in there?
No, they signed a kid out of Penrith, Isaiah Iongi. And look, there are big raps on him.
yeah.
He's been Dylan Edwards' understudy for a number of seasons. I think he's played about 58, 59 New South Wales Cup games. He's going to get first crack.
You seen
at
much
the
of
number
him?
one jumper. I haven't seen a lot, Block. He's only played one game in the NRL. So to me, when you just look at that whole situation, so they go and sign a young bloke. He's played one game in first grade. And then you go and tell your captain, mate, listen, we want you to move to lock, possibly play some dummy half as well. And we've signed this other kid who's going to come in and replace you. Come on, we've all been around long enough. We know what's going on there.